Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. All my video lectures are for educative purpose. We have started with a series on clinical examination. So this is the other part of respiratory system examination. Previously, we have already done regarding inspection, palpation. Now we are going to deal with what we call as a percussion. The basic principle remains same as that in elementary system. We'll have a little highlight and then we'll be proceeding with what you looked by doing percussion. So basically we know that percussion are of two types. One we call as a direct percussion and other we call as a indirect percussion. Direct percussion in respiratory system is mainly done by doing a percussion on clavicle, on sternum. This is called direct percussion and you don't use a pleximeter finger in between the percussing finger and the chest wall. And occasionally the percussion is done on a sternum to identify any mediastinal structure abnormality, as well as sometime it is also done on clavicle, but it is not a common mode of percussion. What is being done is indirect percussion. Always do a percussion in a supine posture. As a basic principle, we always percuss with pleximeter finger over the intercostal space, and percussing finger usually we use either a index finger or a middle finger, and as a pleximeter finger either index finger or a middle finger. And in a pleximeter finger, the distal most part, that is the distal part of the finger, should be in a close contact with the intercostal space. And when you are moving the or you are percussing with percussing finger, that is either a middle finger or a ring finger, and that is by doing a movement at the wrist. Jerk what is being given is one or two at a time. All jerks should be of a same force. Always we percuss from the first intercostal space down, and always we percuss from lateral to medial. These are the two principles you have to keep it in mind. Whenever you percuss, always percuss from the resonant area towards the dull area. That is from the first intercostal space down. And always percuss from lateral to medial. These are the two common principles which we have to keep it in mind. And when you are doing a percussion, there should be no sound. It should be a silent room. All the instruments which are producing sound like fan, AC, electronic instrument, your mobile phone should be off. And whenever you want to percuss posteriorly, it should be in a sitting posture. If you want to make out very clearly and compare right with left, in a sitting posture, whenever you want to percuss the back, it is the best. So percussing on the back gives you much better idea when you do a percussion in a sitting posture, and you can compare right with left. But when you percuss the anterior surface, you compare right with left, go from first intercostal space downwards and from lateral to medial. Those are the basic principles, and these are all the principles what are being mentioned. We call pleximeter finger the plexer, or what we call as a percussing finger, what are the normal sounds, etc. Now we'll be going through that particular. Sitting position is the best for percussion, yes, and that is best for as far as posterior surface is concerned. Supine posture is not desirable because of alteration of percussion note by underlying structure in which the patient lies. To some extent, yes, but in a sitting posture to percuss the anterior surface becomes little difficult. So if you want to percuss and compare right with left regarding anterior surface, it is best to percuss in a supine posture rather than a sitting posture. Whichever you are comfortable, you can do the percussion. But for posterior and axilla, the sitting posture is the best. This is when you are percussing the posterior side. So for posterior percussion, sitting is the only method by which you can do the percussion. And for axilla, that is we call lateral percussion, patient should be in a sitting posture and his both hands should be over the head so that there is a complete abduction at the shoulder joint so that you get the maximum area in axilla. We already mentioned direct percussion, indirect percussion. Direct percussion is usually done by directly percussing on the clavicle or on the sternum. And when you use a fleximeter finger in between, you call that as indirect percussion. And again, indirect percussion, there are usually we compare right with left, we call comparing right with left or comparative method. There is another technology called as a topographic method. By and large, when you percuss from the resonant area to the dull area, and in that if you use a very light percussion, you will be able to make out the difference much better than doing a heavy percussion. For the deeper structure, to identify the note, you can do a heavy percussion. Means the jerk what is being given is little heavier as compared to routine. And in case of a coin test, usually you percuss with a coin and you auscultate on the opposite side. That is, when you percuss anteriorly, you auscultate posteriorly. That is called auscultation along with percussion, and that is done in a coin test. We'll be showing you that. So this is direct percussion, this is indirect percussion. Here you can see this is fleximeter finger, this is percussion finger, and the movement is done at the wrist joint. This is anteriorly, best is in supine posture, and when you do percussion posteriorly, it is best in sitting posture. And always compare right with left, identical area, identical space. So whenever you are doing a percussion, we want to find out the note. So direct percussion is usually done on sternum or on a rib or over the tender mass or mass. Indirect percussion very rarely being done. Sorry, direct percussion is not commonly being done. It is done in a mediastinal pathophysiology and in apical pathophysiology when you percuss over the clavicle. Also, while doing an indirect percussion, posteriorly at the renal angle, you can go for a costovertebral angle tenderness. So that will be renal angle tenderness you can do. Direct percussion, sternum, ribs, clavicle. Always stand on the right side. Ask the patient to lie down supine. First, always do the light percussion. Chronic isthmus percussion is done in the neck triangle, which is formed by clavicle, anteriorly, posteriorly scapula, and laterally the muscles of the neck. In this triangle, the apical lobe comes. You can do by putting a finger in that particular triangle and percuss. Sometimes we percuss with putting a thumb and then percussing. So depends upon what you find comfortable. In a normal person, laterally, because of lateral end of the clavicle, there you get a dull note. Anteriorly, because of clavicle, you get a dull note. Posteriorly, because of scapula and a suprascapular muscle, again you get a dull note. Medially, because of the muscles, of neck, again you get a dull note. So there is a dull note anteriorly, laterally, posteriorly and medially. And in this triangle, if you percuss, the apex of the right lobe or left lobe is containing alveoli, and as it is containing alveoli, it will give rise to a resonant note. So if there is a dullness instead of resonance note, it indicates some pathophysiology in the right apical lobe or on the left side, left apical lobe. So that is the very important part, what we call as a chronic isthmus. So in a lung pathophysiology like consolidation, collapse, extensive fibrosis, apical tuberculosis and apical mass, and good number of times the apical mass is given a name Pancoast tumor. While in a pleural pathology, apical pleural thickening and apical pleural fibrosis will give rise to dull note. Now from clavicle down, we go on percussing. On clavicle it will be a dull note, and below the clavicle now we get what we call as a first rib and first intercostal space. So right from first intercostal space down up to fifth intercostal space, it will be a resonant note, but on the right side, in a fifth intercostal space, the upper border of the lever will come, which will move one intercostal space down on deep inspiration. That suggests that that is upper border of lever. And we have mentioned two important things. Always percuss from first intercostal space down, and percuss from lateral, that is from axillary area towards the sternal border. So these are the two things you must pay attention. And when you are percussing, look for resonant note or any abnormal change in the note, we call dull note. So normally we get the three types of resonant note. One, resonant note. Second, hyperresonance. And third variety we call is a tympanic note. Over the normal lung tissue, you get a normal resonance. If there is a good quantity of air which is being collected, like in case of emphysema, you will get little hyperresonance. And in case of a partial pneumothorax or total pneumothorax, you will have little increase in the resonance, that is we call as a hyperresonance. And when there is a more air collection, you will get tympanic note. But to a surprise, when there is a tension pneumothorax, there is air which is collected in the pleural cavity, but when you do percussion, that cannot produce hyperresonance to tympanic note, but instead of that there will be a dull note. So one of the cause of a dull note is because of tension pneumothorax. So do remember this, and if it is on the right side, you will not be able to differentiate liver dullness from dullness because of tension pneumothorax. But because of the shift of trachea, shift of mediastinum, shift of diaphragm down, you will be suspecting something is pushing diaphragm down and mediastinum to the opposite side, and that is most likely to be pneumothorax. And in case of a massive pleural effusion, which is pushing diaphragm down, mediastinum to the opposite side, but on percussion, instead of dullness, you will get stony dullness. So stony dullness will be in a favor of massive pleural effusion or hemothorax, empyema, etc. And in that particular case, there will be shift of mediastinum to the opposite side, as well as there will be shift of diaphragm down, and that will shift even liver down, and liver may be just palpable. So to differentiate between a tension pneumothorax and a massive pleural effusion on the right side, the quality of dullness, you get a dull note in a tension pneumothorax, and in a case of a massive pleural effusion, you will get a stony dull. Just keep this thing in mind. I have already mentioned regarding a clavicle. I mentioned regarding a chronic isthmus, normally chronic isthmus in all normal person is resonant. If you get dull note, it will be because of lung pathophysiology or because of pleural pathophysiology. In lung pathophysiology, again I am repeating, this is very frequently asked in your oral, and remember this name, that is chronic isthmus. So dullness in a apical lobe will be because of apical pathophysiology like consolidation, collapse, apical tuberculosis, apical fibrosis, and Pancoast tumor, that is apical bronchogenic carcinoma. And in case of a pleural pathophysiology, pleural fibrosis and thickened pleura. This will be the condition which will be producing dull note in a chronic isthmus. And if there is pneumothorax, maybe a partial pneumothorax, total pneumothorax, you will have tympanic note in the chronic isthmus region because air shifts upward. Very, very rarely, if there is a massive pleural effusion, then fluid, if it is there right up to apical lobe, then also you may get a dull note in a chronic isthmus area. Yes, if you are doing a percussion in a sitting posture, in case of a hydropneumothorax, air will go to the top level. Again, you will have a hyperresonant to tympanic note when you percuss in a chronic isthmus. So also in a case of hydropneumothorax, apart from partial pneumothorax, total pneumothorax, also in apical pneumothorax, what we call as, in hydropneumothorax, when you percuss in a chronic isthmus, you will get tympanic note. So these are some of the points which are very frequently asked in your oral. So just keep this thing in mind. We already mentioned that right from the first intercostal space down on the right side, from first to down, same thing is done on the left side. Also percuss from axillary area towards the sternal border and look for normal resonance. If there is a hyperresonance or tympanic note, abnormal. If there is an impaired note, dull note or stony dull, it is abnormal. Only dullness of lever you can identify on the right side, which is right from 5th intercostal space or 6th intercostal space depending upon the body structure. In a thin build individual, it may be in a 5th or 6th intercostal space. In average build individual, it will be in a 5th intercostal space. And occasionally in a person with a huge ascites, pregnancy in a female, and in case of obesity, diaphragm may be pushed up. Occasionally diaphragm may be pushed up because of even a big pelvic tumor like ovarian tumor or uterine tumors or massive uterine enlargement apart from pregnancy in female. The diaphragm may be pushed up, in which case the upper border of the lever may be shifted to 4th or 3rd intercostal space, which you will confirm by when a person takes a deep inspiration, the dullness which was there in a 3rd or 4th intercostal space shifts 1 or 2 space down. This will be a very important thing clinically to differentiate between a lever dullness and dullness because of lower lobe pathophysiology on the right side. There are some condition in a lung, and if it is there on a right lower lobe, on a right side, right lower lobe, they will produce a dullness like consolidation, collapse, pleural effusion, subdiaphragmatic effusion, also pneumonic effusion, lower lobe mesothelioma, hydropneumothorax. So because of fluid collection, it will be always to the lowermost part, and if it is done in a sitting posture, you will get a horizontal level of dullness, and above the dullness you will get tympanic note. That will be very typical if you percuss in a sitting posture, and that will be because of air collected above the fluid level. So this will be some of the condition where you can get a dull note, which will interfere with the dullness of liver. As far as the liver pathophysiology is concerned, in a case of a right upper lobe of liver abscesses, maybe amoebic or maybe pyogenic liver abscess, or there may be secondary metastasis, the liver will enlarge upward. So diaphragm will be pushed up and it can produce a liver dullness. Instead of fifth intercostal space, maybe in a fourth or maybe in a third intercostal space. And if it is because of the diaphragm elevation, during deep inspiration, it will shift one space down. So that will be the best way of confirmation. In case of a lung pathophysiology, that dullness will not shift down on deep inspiration. So this is a very important point while you are doing a percussion. So already we have explained this percussion technique. You have to keep only middle finger or an index finger in a close contact with the chest wall, mainly in the intercostal space. All the other fingers should be away from the chest wall, and distal most part of the finger should be in a contact with the chest wall. So distal most part should be in a contact with the chest wall, and you give a percussion with either middle finger or index finger by movement of the wrist joint. At a time, one or two jerks. All jerks should be of identical force. By and large, light percussion is enough. In case of suspected deep seated pathophysiology like tumor, you can do a heavy percussion, but in good number of time you don't require a heavy percussion, and you always look for resonant sound becoming a dull note or any change in a resonant note, because all over the lung you will get a resonant note. If resonant note is changed to hyperresonance or tympanic, it is abnormal. If it is changed from resonant to dull note, it is abnormal. The condition which changes the resonant note, at this stage only I am just explaining. So if you are percussing and if say here you get a hyperresonant note which is abnormal. So first we will take regarding a hyperresonant note. This will be in a case of a thin superficial cavity, thin wall, big superficial cavity which is in communication with a bronchus. Classical example. Or instead of hyperresonant, you might have even a tympanic note. Hyperresonant all over the chest, anteriorly, axilla and posteriorly, will be classical in case of emphysema, and it will be bilateral. By and large, the emphysema is very frequently bilateral. Occasionally, compensatory emphysema may be in a normal lung to compensate the opposite diseased lung. As far as tympanic note is concerned, in case of a total pneumothorax, and sometime also in case of a tension pneumothorax, you may get a tympanic note anteriorly, in axilla and posteriorly. By and large, this tension pneumothorax is usually unilateral, very rarely bilateral. And if it is bilateral, it is always having a high mortality. And I have already explained, in a tension pneumothorax, there will be shift of trachea to the opposite side, mediastinum will be shifted to opposite side, and diaphragm will be pushed down. And particularly on the right side, if diaphragm is pushed down, liver is also pushed down along with diaphragm, and liver may be just palpable, and you will be able to identify liver is pushed down. This will be classical, and liver dullness will be overlapped by tympanic note because of tension pneumothorax or because of dull note if it is severe tension pneumothorax. If the same thing is there on the left side, on the left side you get a cardiac dullness. Spleen, if it is enlarged, then only you get a dullness demonstrable because of spleen. Otherwise, you will be able to demonstrate a tympanic note because of the drop space which covers the fundus part of the stomach, which is containing air. So drop space will be affected if there is a change in normal resonant note of the lung on the left side. So simultaneously we are doing what will be the changes in the drop space. So trop space will be affected if the cardiac dullness area increases. In case of, say we give an example, massive cardiomegaly, which is because of the huge biventricular hypertrophy. In case of cardiomyopathy, we call dilated cardiomyopathy, short form we call as a DCM, or because of the MR or AR, aortic regurgitation, mitral regurgitation, which produces a big dilatation of left ventricle, or because of what we call as pericardial disorders like massive pericardial effusion, that will also produce an increased area of dullness because of pericardial disease, and this will increase the encroachment of the cardiac dullness over the trop space, and trop space area will reduce, or sometime it is replaced by cardiac dullness. Same way, massive splenomegaly, which we have already mentioned good number of causes in alimentary system. I'll just narrate few of those. Malaria, Kala Azar, portal hypertension, chronic myeloid leukemia, polycythemia rubra vera, myelofibrosis, and myeloproliferative disorders. These are the groups where the spleen is massively enlarged. There may be many causes which can be there, but these are the causes where the spleen is massively enlarged, and that splenic dullness can cover the trop space area, which was tympanic, and trop space area will be reduced or absent and replaced by splenic dullness. Then comes the lung pathophysiology. In a patient with these are all the questions which can be asked to you in your oral. So just listen proper. In a case of a lung pathophysiology, as we have discussed regarding a dullness in a lower lobe, because of lung consolidation, collapse, and mass in lower lobe. This will be the conditions which will produce dullness in left lower lobe. And in a lung pathophysiology, hydrothorax, pleural effusion, hemothorax, empyema, hydropneumothorax, thickened pleura, fibrosis involving the lower part of the lobes, and because of mesothelioma. All these conditions will produce a dullness. And in a case of a massive pleural effusion, it can be stony dull. In case of a mesothelioma also, it can be stony dull or severe dullness, and that will overlap trop space. So trop space obliteration will be because of cardiac dullness increase, splenic dullness increase, and dullness in because of the left lower lobe pathophysiology or because of pleural pathophysiology. Because of tension pneumothorax or total pneumothorax on the left side, entirely on the left side, it will be replaced by tympanic node. So it will be extremely difficult to differentiate trop space from tympanic node because of the pleural pathophysiology, which is mainly because of total pneumothorax. Also because of the stomach pathophysiology, if the person has got heavy meal and the gas from the fundus is almost removed, the fundus stomach does not contain air, so you will not have a tympanic node, and there is a fluid or a food material which will give rise to a dull node. Or if the person has got fundal carcinoma, then also the air will be replaced by a tumor, and then you will again have a dull node. So these are all the questions which are very frequently asked in your oral. Do pay attention. Trop space is very frequently asked. Demonstrate trop space. What are the border of trop space, etc. We'll be going through that. So whenever you percuss from above downwards, percuss from lateral to medial, and always compare right with left. So if I'm percussing here, I'll percuss on this side and compare this note with this note. So always compare on identical side on right as well as left. And percussion can be done in two positions, supine position and sitting position. Sitting position is very good for percussion on the posterior side and in axilla. In axilla, you always go from above downwards and try to identify and compare right with left, any change in the note. And posteriorly, you do the percussion on a suprascapular region. This is a suprascapular. This is interscapular. Over the scapula, it will be always a dull note. And below the scapula, it will be a resonant note. So interscapular, infrascapular and suprascapular. On suprascapular, by and large, it is a dull note. This will be a resonant note. Interscapular region and infrascapular region will be a dull note. And when you are doing a percussion, ask the person to flex the arm as much as possible so that you get a maximum distance between the two scapula. And in this sitting posture, you can also do the percussion in axilla. And also, while doing a percussion in axilla, arm should be above the head so that you get a maximum exposure of the axillary part. And when you are doing a percussion in a supraclavicular fossa, or we call as a chronic isthmus area, this is a chronic isthmus. You can stand on the back and do the percussion. That is the best way of doing a percussion. Whenever you come to a clinical site, we'll demonstrate that. So this is percussion on the posterior side, percussion in the suprascapular region, percuss over the scapula, direct percussion, interscapular region and infrascapular region. And you might use a heavy percussion because there are muscles which are there which will interfere. Now normally over the scapula and suprascapular region you will have a dull note, but in interscapular region you will have a resonant note, and infrascapular region also you will have a resonant note. Now I've already mentioned regarding a change in the resonant to hyperresonance and tympanic note, as well as from resonant to impaired dull note and stony dull. This will be characteristic in a dull note. So I mentioned almost all conditions. The structure which produces a dull note is consolidation, collapse, fibrotic lung, mass, abscess filled with fluid, etc. will have a dull note. And in a pleural cavity, fluid, any fluid, pure water, hydrothorax, exudate, effusion, pus, empyema, blood, hemothorax, chyle, chylothorax, urine, urothorax. These are all the conditions which will produce dull note. As well as thickened pleura, fibrotic pleura will have a dull note. And tumor of the pleura, that is mesothelioma, malignant tumors. So that will be also dull note. So in all these conditions, you will have a dull note. And if it is in the lower lobe, in infrascapular region, you will be able to find out. And if it is posterior, it will be a dull note. And we already mentioned regarding a resonant note converted to the hyperresonance or tympanic will be because of the pneumothorax, which can be partial pneumothorax to a total pneumothorax. So in those conditions, the resonant note will be converted into hyperresonance or tympanic note. Very rarely we have mentioned that if it is a thin superficial cavity, a big cavity, you can have a tympanic note in that region. So posteriorly, you start percussing from above downward. This will be suprascapular. This will be infrascapular or interscapular. Over the scapula, you will always have a dull note. Infrascapular region, usually it will be corresponding to the 7th intercostal space. So you can percuss below the 7th intercostal space, and in that area it will be a resonant note. If suppose in an interscapular region close to the vertebra, we call paravertebral region, if you get a dull note, it is called Despine's sign, and this is because of the paratracheal lymph nodes enlargement, which can be because of lymphomas or because of secondary metastasis from bronchogenic carcinoma. And as far as the percussion in the lateral chest wall is concerned, all principle remains same as you do a percussion anteriorly. Always percuss from above downwards and percuss from a resonant area to a dull area. And in an axilla, you don't require a heavy percussion. Usually heavy percussion is required in a structure where it is a dipper or where there is a big muscle which is intervening in between your percussion findings. So try to compare right with left. So this is a percussion on the right side, you are percussing from above downwards, and always compare the identical area on opposite side. And while percussing in an axilla, or what we call as the lateral part, sitting posture is the best, and hand above the head, so that you get maximum axillary area. So you can percuss in the highest axillary space also. We already mentioned all this. Resonant notes is normal. Hyperresonance is usually abnormal. Upper border of the lever is usually in the fifth intercostal space. Right border of the heart is almost parallel to the sternum. There is a very small area of dullness on the right side. Second intercostal space on the right side is an aortic area where you will have always resonant note. And second intercostal space on the left side is pulmonary area. Again, there you will get a resonant note, normal resonant note. Left border of the heart from second intercostal space up to the apical impulse will demonstrate dull note. Chronic isthmus is always a dull note. Trop space will be tympanic note. Lung will always produce a resonant note. Liver will produce a dull note. And cardiac dullness will be also a dull note. This is a normal principle in an anterior surface of the chest wall. I already mentioned regarding change in the resonant note, dull note, stony dull, hyperresonant and tympanic note. I have already mentioned, so I am not repeating. At your leisure time, you can go through this. So flat note, or we call impaired note, mainly because of consolidation or collapse. And if the collapse is big enough, you can have a dull note. Dull note will be normal because of the heart, liver, spleen, common. But because of a pathophysiology I have already mentioned, fluid, mass, fibrosis, consolidation, collapse. Normal resonant note all over the lung, hyperresonant in case of emphysema, and tympanic note in a case of a total pneumothorax. And very odd, if it is a massive tension pneumothorax, you can get a dull note. And if there is a massive pleural effusion, instead of dull, you will get what is being described as stony dull. So these are all the different conditions very frequently asked in your oral. So do remember, go through again and again. These are all the things I have already mentioned. So I have repeated many times, so I am skipping over all this. So percussion note, tympanic note, subtympanic, hyperresonance, resonant, impaired, dull, stony dull, and these are the conditions very frequently asked to you in your oral. And this is suprascapular region always dull, interscapular region resonant, infrascapular region from 7th intercostal space down resonant note. All the conditions mentioned here. And in interscapular region, I have mentioned one sign we call Despines sign, which is because of paratracheal lymph nodes or paraesophageal lymph nodes or a big mass. So consolidation will produce dull, collapse will produce dullness, effusion will produce dull, and if it is a massive stony dullness, emphysema, hyperresonance, pneumothorax, tympanic, hydropneumothorax, in a sitting posture, you will have a dullness in the lower part, and above the dull, you will have a resonant note. We call it a horizontal line will be there, and you will be able to demonstrate splashing sound on auscultation, and you will be able to palpate even a splash on palpation. On a mesothelioma, again a dull note. Thickened pleura, fibrosis, again a dull note. Thin wall superficial cavity, right from hyporesonance to a tympanic note. And over a liver, cardiac dullness, normal dull note. And in a case of a trop space, you will have normal tympanic note. In a case of hydropneumothorax, you can demonstrate septic dullness. In a case of a pneumothorax and in a case of hydropneumothorax, you can demonstrate point test. We'll be showing you that. Trop space I've already discussed. Liver dullness also I've already discussed. Cardiac dullness also I've already discussed, but we'll be discussing in detail in cardiovascular percussion. Liver dullness we have already discussed in alimentary system. Chronic isthmus I've already discussed in a supraclavicular region above the clavicle in a lateral triangle of the neck we call chronic isthmus, and I already discussed regarding a dull note and tympanic note. There is something called as a Ellis S curve in case of a pleural effusion. We'll show you that in a one diagram. Then Gorokos triangle and Garlett's triangle. Despine sign I already mentioned. So this will be few things. We'll be having some slides. We'll be trying to explain you. But best thing is possible when you come to a clinical site. So this will be a normal resonance, this will be a normal cardiac dullness, this will be a normal liver dullness, and liver dullness will be upper border will be in a fifth intercostal space. Cardiac dullness will be up to the apical impulse, mainly inside the mid-clavicular line. This will be the area for the trop space. This will be the area for the trop space. Here will be the spleen. This will be the lower left costal margin. Will be showing you that. Posteriorly, this will be interscapular region. This will be a resonant. This will be approximately 7th intercostal space down. Resonant node. Scapula, dull node. Suprascapular region because of the what we call as a trapezius muscle and suprascapular muscle. Again a dull node. So this will be the normal area of dullness and resonance posteriorly. And in axilla, you will always have what we call as normal resonance node. Now, in a person, this is chronic isthmus, dullness medially, dullness laterally, posteriorly it will be dull, anteriorly clavicle will produce dull. So this is the band of normal resonance that is called chronic isthmus. This is called Gorokos triangle. That is, if the person has got a pleural effusion on opposite side, you will have push of lung to the opposite side, and that can produce little collapse on the opposite lung, and that will produce a dullness in this triangular area we call as a Gorokos triangle. We'll be showing you that. So I've already mentioned regarding a chronic isthmus, cardiac dullness, upper border of the liver, etc. We have already mentioned. Now you can see that this is what we call as the intercostal space percussion posteriorly. In this area, we will get normal resonance. All principle remains same. In a case of a tension pneumothorax, you will get a tympanic note. In a case of emphysema, you will have a hyperresonance, etc. So you will have a normal lung tissue in an intercostal space. And whenever you are doing a percussion posteriorly, ask the person to flex the arm completely as much as possible anteriorly. So that will allow you to have a maximum space between the two scapula. So when you are percussing in an interscapular region, and also the infrascapular region will be increased. So that will be the best way to find out that. Tidal percussion I have already mentioned. That is called auscultatory percussion, that is mainly done for a coin test. This is, you percuss on a coin and you auscultate posteriorly. You will get a typical metallic sound in a tension pneumothorax. This is a coin test, means you are doing a percussion and you are also doing a auscultation. So it is a percussion sound which you are auscultating posteriorly, and this is one of the sign which can be easily demonstrable. Good number of time asked in your oral. So just here you keep one coin and over the coin you percuss. By and large you will need the help of a person. You cannot do a percussion with one hand holding a stethoscope with the other hand, impossible. So always try to auscultate and ask the person to percuss on the anterior surface of the chest wall, and it will be producing typical metallic sound because of tension pneumothorax. While doing a topographical percussion, that is, if you want to find out a zone where there is a just change from the resonant to the dull note, always do a light percussion. So that is called topographical percussion. So whenever you want to find out the upper border of the liver, you want to find out a change in the dull note over the tympanic note in a trop space. You want to find out posteriorly if there is any change in the resonant note to the dull note. do a gentle percussion and shift in a small space only and compare right with left, you will be able to find out very nicely a change from resonant to the dull note, and this is given a name, topographical percussion. This is chronic isthmus, Gorokos triangle. There are two words. There is one called Gardles triangle. This is a hyperresonant sound which is because of shift of lung because of pleural effusion, and that produces hyperresonant sound above the dullness because of pleural effusion, and that is called Skodiak resonance, or also called as a Garland's triangle. It will be on the side of the pleural effusion. But Gorokos triangle, it is a right angle triangle of dullness found over the posterior region of the chest on the opposite side because of the large pleural effusion, and that I'll show you here. Yes, this is a nice one. So you will have a dullness because of pleural effusion. So you will have a dullness, you will have a higher level in axilla, and anteriorly again you will have a dullness, and that is described as a Ellis S curve. Posteriorly, below the scapula, you will have a dull note, and in this area, this is the area which will be in an interscapular region. If this is a good amount of effusion, the lung is pushed up, and in this area you will get little hyperresonance, and that is given a name Garland's triangle, or Skodiak resonance. Do remember these words. And on opposite lung, this is the normal lung. In this area, you will have a area of dullness. This will be a right angle, and this will be a triangle. So this is a right angle triangle. This is called Grocos triangle. Grocos triangle. So this will be Garland's triangle. Sorry. This will be Garland's triangle of tympanic note or hyperresonance, and this will be Grocos triangle, which will be a dull note, and this will be a dull note because of pleural effusion, which will be having a lower border little below, and in axilla you will have a higher level. This is also called as a Demosio curve or Ellis S curve. Just remember this name. These are all for oral exams. There is also some signs called as a Ewart sign. There is a dullness below the left scapula in case of a large pericardial effusion is called as a Ewart sign. Posteriorly, Corner sign, dullness to percussion below the right scapula in a large pericardial effusion. This is on the right side. Ewart sign is on the left side. And there is one more sign called Kellogg's sign. This is increased rib vibration in anterior chest to percussion posteriorly in case of a pleural effusion. Very odd to demonstrate. Very rarely asked in your oral exam. This is one slide I got it from the NET. That's why I put. Very rarely it will be asked, but still, if you can remember such names, or at least you remember in case of a massive pleural effusion, you can have a Grocos triangle and Garland's triangle, and in case of a large pericardial effusion, on the left side posteriorly below the scapula, Ewart sign, and on the right side dullness called Corner's sign. So if you remember, well and good. There is another called Skodiak's hyperresonance. This I have already described. That is same as Garland's triangle. And D. Amatos sign, that is a percussible dullness with a change in the position because of pleural effusion. Just forget all this. These are all different signs again. Williams tracheal resonance, Wintrich sign, etc. Forget all these signs. Gerard signs, Frederick sign, Despine sign. Yes, sometimes this is asked. That is a dullness in a paratracheal region. Posteriorly we call paravertebral region, mainly because of lymph nodes enlarged. And classical example is Hodgkin's lymphoma, or we call lymphomas. And that is in a paravertebral region. And that is called Despine sign. Normal person, you get normal resonant note, and if it is replaced by a dull note, that is called Despine sign, and over that area you can get even a bronchial breathing. So Despine sign, yes, do remember this. So I end my lecture here. I hope this lecture will be helpful to you, and this is the most common, alimentary system and respiratory system are the most common cases given to you in your oral exams. So go through again and again, it will help you. There are a lot of questions which are being asked from respiratory and alimentary system in your oral exam regarding inspection, palpation, percussion and auscultation. In next lecture we'll be dealing with what we call as the auscultation of respiratory system. If you find any difficulty, you can ask me at any time. I think this lecture will be very helpful to you. If you like this lecture, please press button like and subscribe, and you can share with your friends if you find it to be helpful to your friend. So the end of the lecture. I thank you all for taking out time. I know your time is very valuable, and I also appreciate you for spending some of the time with me. So see you in next lecture.